Hello and welcome back to section 5, which is the user information and management section of this course. So the first command for the user information side is ID. If you type ID and click enter, this will display your account's unique ID. So your unique ID will appear here and your unique group ID will appear here. So whatever group your account is assigned to, the ID for that group will appear here. Now if you wonder what groups are, essentially within Kali Linux, the file permissions are set up in a certain way. So every account on the Linux system will have a group. They must have at least one group. So by default, when you create an account, which we'll see later, the account is assigned a group with the same username as the account. Then you need to change that primary group. It's called a primary group. You need to change that group. Every account must have a group, and essentially the way it works is you have an owner of a file or folder, you have a group associated to that file or folder, and you have others. Now others is an umbrella term for people that are not in that group associated to the file and also not the owner. So let's go with the theme of a school. So imagine the school server has a work folder on it. The owner of the file would be the school's administrator, the IT administrator, which would have all the permissions over the file. Then you would have the group students, and inside that group would be loads of user accounts for students. They can log in and see the file because they will have restricted permissions, but they will have enough just to view the file and maybe make changes or the folder and add files to it. Then you would have others. Like I said before, the others is just an umbrella term for people that are not in that group and not the owner. So in this case of a school, maybe it would be the cleaners or other staff that are not students, such as receptionists, that are not students and also not the owner, which is the school admin account. So for example, a receptionist would not be in the group students and not be the owner, so that's why it's called others. And then you would have certain permissions like read, write and execute, but more will be on the permissions in my permissions section of this course. But for this section it's important to understand that because we are going to be creating users and adding them to certain groups. So the next command is last. This will show a log of the recent user to log in, and if they're still logged in, when they logged in and what day and date. So as you can see here, root, which is this account I'm currently using, is still logged in and logged in 1:45 on Monday the 7th of Jan. You can use multi-user with Linux systems for SSH. So if you go to my YouTube channel, I recommend you watch my SSH video. It's a free video on YouTube, how to have multiple users simultaneously log into a Linux system. So if I had a few friends that wanted to log into my Kali Linux system right now and make changes to a file or user, then I would allow them to create an account on the system, or I would create the account for them, and then they would be able to SSH, which is a shell, into the account and be able to use it while I'm also logged in as the root. So you can have multiple users. That's why John is displayed here, and as you can see, the IP address they've SSH'd from, at what time and what day. So you can have multiple users at the same time working on the same or different files. The changes are all in real time, so it's very useful to have SSH. The main reason I use it is for in case I'm traveling, for example, and I want to log into a web server, a Linux web server, a Ubuntu server, then I can use SSH for myself directly into the accounts that I created from anywhere in the world. So the next command is who. If you type who and click enter, this will just display who was last to log in, or in fact I'll change that, it's who is currently logged in. So whoever is currently logged in will be displayed here. If you type W and click enter, this will also show who is currently logged in and what they are currently doing. So that's the difference between who and W. So that's the user information side of things done. Now we're going to look at the management. So we're going to create a group here, going with the same theme as the school. So we'll type group add students. So we'll just add the students group. There we go. So the students group has been created. Now we need to create a user to go inside of this students group. So we'll type user add -m to create a home directory. The home directory is essentially just a workspace for that specific user to save their own files, basically like their own little section of the memory. Think of it like that. So you need -m, and then you need the username. So you can call the username whatever you like. I'm going to call this student Ryan, for example. Click enter, and there we go. So if we go up here to account settings, this account settings option, as you can see, Ryan has now been created. Now the account is disabled, and accounts will be disabled by default unless they have a password, so we need to set a password to this account. So the way you can do that in the terminal is by typing sudo password without the O and the R, so it's passwd, and then the username of the account. So in my case it's Ryan, so I'll click enter a new password, or set the password for this account, and there we go. So we've got a group of students, we've got one user called Ryan, which is a student. Now, like I said before, when you create an account, it will automatically create a corresponding group with the same name. So the way to display all the groups on your system is if you type cat/etc/group. If you click enter, as you can see here, these are all the groups on the current system. The new groups that you create always appear at the bottom. So you can see here the students group, but there's also a group, and this is not the user account, this is the group. So this here, there's a group called Ryan, and that's because, like I said before, when you create a user, it will automatically create a group with the same name. Now, to change the user account's group, you need to change the primary group of the user account. In this case, the primary group at the moment is called Ryan for Ryan user account, because that's what happens. So to delete this account's group, what you need to do is you need to reassign the primary group of the account Ryan to something else, which we are going to do because we want to put Ryan's account into the group of students. Then we can delete Ryan's account, because you cannot delete a primary group from an account. So you can't remove a user from their primary group, because, like I said before, all users must be in a group. So hopefully this makes more sense once we actually get into it. So the first thing we need to do is assign the primary group to the new user, because if you type this command, you can see what corresponding group the user is in. This will make more sense now. So if you type this command, cut-d colon F1 with a hyphen at the start, so -F1/etc/password without the O and the R, so it's passwd. Then this line, I forgot what that line's called, XARGS, and the groups. So you just type groups, the word groups, click enter, and as you can see, Ryan is currently in the group Ryan. But now we want to change the primary group. The primary group is the only group the user is in, so we need to change that to students. So the way you do that is type usermod -G, then the primary group name, which is students, and then we need to type the username, so it's Ryan. Make sure it's case sensitive, so capital R in this case. If you've used lowercase, then just use lowercase. Click enter, and now if we press the up arrow twice to repeat this command, we can now see Ryan is in the group students. But let's say there's another group now called top students, and all the top students of the school go inside of this group for maybe a reward or extra points, anything. In this case, it's the context is just to help you understand. So now let's add a new group. So group add, and then we'll just add the group top students. So this is a separate group now for a few students. So group add top students. Now, what happens if we wanted to assign Ryan to two groups, which is possible? You have a primary group and as many secondary groups as you want. So in this case, we want Ryan to be in the primary group of students, but then we also want him to be in top students because, for example, he could be a top student. He could be really clever. So the way to add him to a secondary group while keeping his primary group is by typing usermod -A -G, and then the secondary group's name, which is top students, then his username. So I keep saying his, but in this case just the account's username. So then you just click enter, and now if you repeat this command again, as you can see, Ryan is now in students as a primary group and also top students as a secondary group. Now there's ways of changing the secondary group and the primary group without affecting the secondary. So the way to change someone's secondary group is by leaving out the -A. So if we repeat this command but remove the -A, if we click enter and then check what's the new group of Ryan, in fact, sorry, not -G. If we change let's change his primary group to top students. So what you do is you just remember it's just -G. We want to change students as a primary group to top students. So if we click enter and use the command again, as you can see now, Ryan's group is just top students. He's no longer in the students group. His primary group now is students, top students. Now we can also have, let's create another group. So group add, hopefully this will make a little more sense. So group add new students. So we also have a new students group. And we'll assign him, let's just assign him a secondary group. So if you remember, it's -A, -G, and we'll assign him the new students group. So this is a secondary group now for Ryan. So if we have a look again, so he's now in the primary group top students. He's got a secondary group of new students. But let's say we wanted to keep him in the top students group but change his secondary group. Then all we need to do is go here, and all we need to do is remove this A, change new students to top students, Let's remove this A here. So in fact it's not top students, it's just students. I apologize about that. Click enter, and now let's have a look. So as you can see, it's changed from new students to students. If you wanted to keep his secondary group, you need to have the -A. So if I add the -A and then type new students, because that's the one we changed before, this will add it here and it will keep him in students as a secondary group. But if you didn't want to keep the secondary group, then you'd remove the -A. So if I click enter now and check it again, as you can see, it's added it here. But if I go back and remove the -A, click enter, now let's have a look. As you can see, the students group is gone. The same thing would be applied to the students group anyway, so I could type the students group here, and let's have a look. He's in the students group now as a secondary group. Do it one more time. So if I keep the -A and change this to new students, he will be in both secondary groups, as you can see there. To change his primary group, remember it's always just -G. So -G with a lowercase g, it's important, remember, case sensitive, so a lowercase g, and we'll change his primary group again back to just students. And now let's have a look one more time. Students and new students. The reason it removed one more is because it's overwritten his original primary group. So if we just go up here, let's just have a look what his primary group was. It was top students. It's replaced that to students. Then you could add top students again, but as a secondary group. So that's how to change the primary group around, by doing this command, because we want to keep him in new students, and then changing this to top students. And now his primary group and secondary group have switched. So if we have a look, as you can see now, his primary group is top students, his secondary is top students, his primary is students. You can change multiple at once, so let's just remove all of his secondary groups. So let's just have top students as his main. Let's see what happens now. So now he's still in them, so let's get rid of the secondary groups. So his secondary groups need to change. There we go. So now he's currently just in top students. If you get rid of the -A and change the G isn't in fact case sensitive in this, so it doesn't matter with the lowercase or uppercase G, because we've changed his primary group without the -A. Because remember, the -A will retain his secondary groups, but in this case, because we didn't include it, his primary group has now gone to top students. New students has been removed, and so as students. We can, one more command to show you with this groups, and don't worry, we'll get better at it once you get familiar with it. You can keep practicing, but let's change his, let's retain them. So let's just retain his primary group, And let's add some secondary groups, and you can add multiple ones at the same time, so by just leaving a comma in between them. So now we've got students and then new students. Click enter, and now let's have a look. As you can see, it's added both straight away. We want to change one more time. This is definitely the last time now. We'll remove the A, which doesn't keep his secondary group. So his secondary groups are students and new students, and we'll call his primary group students again, and we'll just set it back to normal. And one more time to check. Oh, in fact, that didn't get rid of it because of the lowercase g. Let's try it again. There we go. So the G is case sensitive. For some reason it changed it before but didn't then, so I would keep with the case sensitive, but there we go. So it's back to normal again, and that is basically how to add, remove from a group, how to check what users are in what current groups with the cut command. You can also see what groups are on your system by just typing cat etc groups, not groups, group. As you can see, there's Ryan, which is the Ryan group, which we're going to delete in a second, because remember, when you create an account, it also creates a group with the same username. And we've got our students, top students and new students. So now we can delete this Ryan group. I apologize about my phone going off, because I'm so popular, you know, that's what happens. My crappy attempt at humor. Right, anyway, so let's just remove this Ryan group now. Remember, we're not deleting the user just yet, it's just the group. We could delete top students or new students as well. So let's remove Ryan group. So to delete a group, it's just, instead of add, it's group del. For delete, -F and then the group name. So in this case, it's Ryan group. Click enter, and that's Ryan gone, because now if we have a look at this, the Ryan group is gone. We could also delete new students. That is gone. And then we could also delete top students. And that group is gone. But now if we try to delete students, this won't work. We click enter and go back up. Oh, as you can see, it has actually deleted it. But if we get this command back up to see what group each user is in, if we go back up here, as you can see, the groups cannot find group name for ID 100. So it just like, basically you have to always assign Ryan to a group. In this case, the Ryan account, we always have to assign it to something. So if we try to delete Ryan from the group directly by using the command without force deleting the group, so let's assign him back to a group, because the -F is force delete, so that's why it worked. But if we add him back to a normal group, so we'll just add Ryan user mod, let's find students. I think students still exist. Oh no, we deleted it, so we need to create the new group again. Group add students. Let's use a mod -G students with Ryan. So we'll add him back to the students group. As you can see, it says no changes. So we force deleted it, but then because we can't add it again, as you can see, it's automatically put him back into it. And if we use the normal command to remove someone from a group, then it's del user, the username, which is Ryan, and then students. Now this won't work. The other command worked because we deleted it with the force command, which will just force delete it, but that's not the best practice. So just type del user Ryan students. This won't work because, as you can see, you can't remove a user from their primary group because all users must have a group. So you may be wondering, well, how do you remove Ryan from this group? Well, you can't. You're not meant to. You're always meant to have a group with a user or a user in a group. So you could create a group called random or common and just stick all them other users in that group. Or you could leave them in their own group, that the one we deleted called Ryan. So it's up to you. You can delete groups though, like I just showed you with the group del -F for students. Now if we create another group again, group add top students again, and we'll get that list back up. So if we type cat /etc/group, click enter, we're going to delete this group now. with the group del command because no users are inside of it. So don't recommend using this command unless you are certain that there's no users within these groups. And then students, in fact top students, and make sure I type the right one. So top students, now it's gone. And I know there's no users in that, so it's fine. So now we've done that, we can also remove students from, or users from, secondary groups. So let's group our top students. We'll give Ryan the secondary group of top students by retaining them. So it's just -A-G, and then the secondary group name, which is top students, and then Ryan. So now if we have a look with the cut command, as you can see, Ryan has now a secondary group of top students. We can remove him from that by just typing del user, then Ryan from the secondary group top students, removing Ryan from the group top students because it's not his primary group, and now he's only in the group students. So now let's just have a look at deleting the user. Once there's no users in the group, you can use the group del and then -f the name of the group. Now we're going to delete the account Ryan. So what you need to do, very simple, it's just user del instead of del user. Now remember, del user, the other way around, is for removing a user from a secondary group. User del is for just deleting an account. So user del -f to force delete the account, and then it's Ryan. Now you would type here the corresponding username, so you click enter. That deletes the account. Now there's also another command you need to do to remove the directory. Remember the home directory that we created with the -m? We need to remove that because it's still on the system. So all of his files need to be deleted, for example. So he could have his work on it and we're just deleting them from the entire existence of this system. So it's sudo rm-r, then the directory, which is home, and then the corresponding username. So make sure whatever you cut the account is here. Click enter, that will delete his account. Now his account has completely gone. So if I go back up to here, as you can see, there's nothing, no trace of his account at all. We can actually type cat to see all the accounts on the current system, etc, and then password without the O and the D, the R. As you can see, there's just no user called Ryan here. It would appear down here. So the last thing we need to do now is delete the group students. So it's group del -f and then students. This will completely delete the group. And there we go. So it will be back to normal. We don't have an account. If I go up here, Ryan doesn't exist anymore. He hasn't got any space on the system, and the groups don't exist anymore. So that's it. So let's have one last look just to make sure. etc cat /etc /group. Click enter. Now the group top student still exists, but we can get rid of that just by typing the same command again. One last time. And there we go. So we're back to how it was at the start of the video. So it probably take you a few times to rewatch that, but hopefully it does make sense and I've explained it as best as I can. So that concludes this section. So I will, hopefully there's no problems with that. If you do, then please email me at adam@codeoncommand.com. I will answer as best as I can. So I will see you all in the next section.